The sky was an ominous shade of gray, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the storm to unleash its fury. The wind howled through the trees, and the first drops of rain began to splatter against the windows of St. Michael's Hospital. Inside, a sense of urgency permeated the air as doctors and nurses rushed through the hallways, their faces masked by expressions of determination and concern. In room 307, Emily Dawson lay on a sterile hospital bed, her face pale and her eyes closed. The monitors around her beeped rhythmically, a constant reminder of the fragile thread by which her life hung. At just 25 years old, Emily had faced more than her share of hardships, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The accident had been swift and brutal. One moment, she was driving home from work, her mind preoccupied with thoughts of the upcoming weekend. The next, she was fighting for her life. The collision had left her with severe internal injuries, and despite the best efforts of the medical team, her condition had deteriorated rapidly. Dr. Thomas Grant, the head of the trauma unit, stood by Emily's bedside, his brow furrowed in concentration. He had seen countless cases like this before, but there was something different about Emily, a spark of resilience that set her apart. He wasn't ready to give up on her. Not yet. "Let's push another round of epinephrine, Doctor," Grant ordered, his voice steady and authoritative. The nurse nodded and complied, injecting the medication into Emily's IV line. For a moment, the beeping on the monitors quickened, and a flicker of hope ignited in the room. But then, as if the heavens themselves had decided to intervene, Emily's heart rate flatlined. The steady beep of the monitor became a relentless, monotonous tone, signaling that her heart had stopped. The room erupted into a frenzy of activity as the medical team sprang into action, performing chest compressions and administering shocks in a desperate attempt to revive her. 15 minutes passed, each second stretching into an eternity. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy with a sense of inevitability, and the once hopeful faces of the medical team began to waver. Dr. Grant's hands trembled slightly as he prepared to call the time of death. But then, something miraculous happened. Emily's body convulsed, and her eyes fluttered open. The monitors sprang back to life, their rhythmic beeping a welcome sound to the ears of those who had fought so hard to save her. Emily's gaze was unfocused at first, her mind struggling to make sense of the chaotic scene around her. But as her vision cleared, she fixed her eyes on Dr. Grant and spoke in a voice that was both fragile and resolute. "I saw it," she whispered, her words barely audible above the hum of the machines. "I saw heaven." Dr. Grant's eyes widened in shock as the room fell silent. The chaos of the last 15 minutes seemed to dissipate, replaced by an almost reverent hush. The medical team, usually a composed and professional group, stood frozen, their faces reflecting a mixture of disbelief and awe. Emily's words hung in the air, an enigmatic declaration that seemed to defy the very laws of nature and science. Dr. Grant, known for his pragmatism and rationality, found himself grappling with an inexplicable sense of curiosity. "You saw heaven?" he repeated, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "Can you tell us more about what you experienced?" Emily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as if summoning the strength to recount her extraordinary journey. Her mind replayed the vivid images that had seared themselves into her memory, and she began to speak, her voice trembling with the weight of the revelation. "It was beautiful," she began, her eyes opening to reveal a distant, almost dreamlike gaze. "A light brighter than anything I've ever seen, yet it didn't hurt to look at. I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and love, like every worry and pain I had ever known was washed away." As Emily spoke, the room seemed to transform, the sterile walls and harsh fluorescent lights fading into the background. Her words painted a vivid tapestry of a place that seemed both otherworldly and intimately familiar. "There were beings there," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "Angels, I think. They had a presence that was both comforting and awe-inspiring. They didn't speak with words, but I could feel their thoughts and emotions. They communicated through love and understanding, a language that transcended anything I had ever known. The medical team listened intently, their skepticism slowly giving way to a sense of wonder. Emily's description was detailed and coherent, far beyond what one might expect from a hallucination or dream. And then, Emily's voice faltered, and a shadow of sorrow crossed her face. I saw my grandmother. She passed away when I was a child, but there she was, looking just as I remembered her. She smiled at me and told me it wasn't my time yet. She said I had to go back, that I still had a purpose to fulfill on Earth. The room held its breath as Emily paused, her eyes filling with tears. The weight of her words, the conviction in her voice, left little room for doubt. Dr. Grant felt a lump form in his throat, his rational mind struggling to reconcile the inexplicable account with his medical knowledge. "What did she say about your purpose?" he asked gently, sensing that this was the crux of Emily's revelation. Emily looked directly at Dr. Grant, her expression resolute. She said that I needed to share what I experienced, to let people know that there is more to life than what we see and understand. She told me to spread hope and faith, to remind others that we are never truly alone. A collective shiver ran through the room as Emily's words resonated deeply with everyone present. Dr. Grant felt a strange sense of clarity, as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a glimpse of something far greater than himself. As the medical team resumed their duties, the atmosphere in room 307 remained charged with a sense of awe and wonder. Emily's experience had left an indelible mark on everyone who had witnessed her return from the brink of death. For Emily, life would never be the same. Her journey to heaven, though brief, had given her a newfound sense of purpose and a message that she was determined to share with the world. And as she lay there, recovering from her ordeal, she knew that her life had been irrevocably changed by those 15 miraculous minutes. The days following Emily's miraculous revival were a whirlwind of activity and emotions. News of her experience spread quickly throughout the hospital, and soon it reached the ears of the local media. Reporters and journalists flocked to St. Michael's, eager to hear Emily's account of her time in heaven. Emily, still recovering from her injuries, found herself overwhelmed by the sudden attention, but she knew that her grandmother's message was too important to keep to herself. She agreed to share her story, hoping that it would bring comfort and inspiration to others. Dr. Grant, who had been a pillar of support throughout Emily's ordeal, stood by her side as she recounted her experience to the world. He had always prided himself on his scientific approach to medicine, but Emily's story had touched something deep within him. It had reminded him that there were mysteries in life that even the most advanced science couldn't explain. As Emily spoke, her words resonated with countless people. Her story became a beacon of hope for those grappling with loss, illness, and uncertainty. It reminded them that there was a greater purpose, a love that transcended the physical world. One evening, as Emily sat by her hospital window, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that her life had been forever changed by her brief journey to heaven, and she was determined to honor her grandmother's message by spreading love and hope wherever she went. The weeks turned into months, and Emily's health improved steadily. She resumed her job and found herself drawn to new opportunities to share her story. She began speaking at local churches and community centers, her words offering solace and inspiration to those who needed it most. But it wasn't just strangers who were touched by Emily's experience. Her family and friends who had stood by her side during the darkest moments found new strength and faith. Her parents, who had struggled to cope with the fear of losing their daughter, found comfort in the knowledge that there was a greater plan at work. Dr. Grant, too, experienced a profound shift in his perspective. He continued his work at the hospital with renewed vigor, but he no longer viewed his patients as mere cases to be solved. He saw them as individuals with unique stories and journeys, each deserving of compassion and understanding. Emily's experience had rekindled his sense of purpose and reminded him why he had become a doctor in the first place. As the years passed, Emily's story continued to inspire countless individuals. She wrote a book about her journey, titled 15 Minutes in Heaven, which became a bestseller. Her message of hope and faith reached far and wide, touching the hearts of people from all walks of life. And though Emily knew that she would one day return to that place of light and love, she no longer feared death. She had been given a glimpse of something far greater than herself, and she carried that knowledge with her, a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed shrouded in darkness. As she looked out at the world with new eyes, Emily knew that her grandmother's words had been true. She had a purpose to fulfill, and she was determined to live each day with love, faith, and hope. Her journey had only just begun, and she was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, knowing that she was never truly alone.